I want to spread positive energy in a company, or not in a company, but in a business and industry that harps on negativity.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talk Trash, and stand back for another interview. This time, I'm joined by the one and only DC Hendrixs from the Raw Review on bodyslam.net and the WrestleHolics podcast. So, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. I know you have a great show, so it's a pleasure to be with you today.
I really appreciate you saying that, my friend. But if we take this back, DC, where do you first discover wrestling as an overall fan?
As an overall fan, so I grew up first. ECW was my actually first company that I grew up watching, early ECW days. So I watched all the originals, Sabu, Sandman, RVD, Jerry Lynn, all the older guys. And I enjoyed the extreme wrestling part of it. It lured me in. And then I ended up, as I got older, because I was young, and I
Mm.
just thought it was cool seeing people get slammed through tables. Like, I thought it was cool. So, I grew up a little bit, and as I grew up, WCW was getting big, and then I discovered WWF at the time, and it took off from there. Watching those two feud against each other, and watching them trying to one up each other in the '90s, and that's
Mm.
where it grew. Though ECW was my birth, though, of my fandom.
Why was because a lot of people's entry point is either the WWF or WCW. Why was ECW your entry point?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly like how I viewed, like it was a weird channel too. Like I think I was just a kid pushing the channel buttons trying to find something to watch, and I think it was Sabu and RVD,
Mm.
and I don't remember which one got put through a table, but one of them went through a table, and it just, look, I was hooked. I was hooked, and I didn't change the channel. That was it for me. ECW.
Mm. So when you do discover ECW, obviously with its sort of violent content and things like that, what is your family's reaction of like, should he watch? Do you know what I mean?
Most definitely. So it ended up, once my parents discovered that I was watching it, they're like, "Nah, you can't watch this stuff." But they were okay with me watching, because WCW and WWF weren't as on that extreme wrestling part.
Mm.
Obviously, even as we view it today, more with the storylines and entertainment side of it. So they okayed me to watch that part of wrestling, but not. I couldn't watch ECW.
What's something you may have gone back and watched on ECW, like as you've got older and maybe as you've had access to it, that you're like, oh, mum, why wasn't I able to watch this? This is cool.
Yeah, I went back. So admittedly, I haven't went back and like watched like any like pay-per-views or anything like that. But I have went back and watched a few matches on
Mm.
YouTube here and there, because YouTube is about the only place someone can correct me. But other than like the rebirth of ECW when they went to WWE,
Mm.
other than going to Peacock and watching all that, or WWE Network, YouTube is the only place, at least that I know of, you can watch it. So I've went back and watched a few Sabu and Sandman matches just to see why it was the company that lured me in as a fan. So YouTube is my main go-to to go back and watch those.
What is something that you've watched and gone, okay, I understand why my parents didn't let me watch this? And then what is something that you're like, oh, I really wish they would have let me watch this?
Definitely Sandman. Sandman would do some crazy stuff, whether it's just entering the ring and taking, chugging the beer cans and slamming his head and with the kendo stick and hitting people with that, and blood just shattering everywhere. Sandman was the guy that I went back and watched, and I'm like, this is why. Like, I don't think I'd be okay with my younger kids watching this. Sandman was definitely the one.
What about you brought up the rebirth of ECW there, or the WWECW, I believe is how it's referred to. So,
Yeah.
what is your thoughts on that?
I actually enjoyed that rebirth of it. To me, if I compare it, it's a lot of what NXT became to be. I think they had a lot of people, because they had the originals versus the new breed. If anybody remembers that feud, which CM
I
Punk was
do.
obviously in that. So like, I enjoyed it, which is another reason I enjoy NXT today. I think it was once they went that route, I enjoyed it a lot more instead of just them trying to emulate what ECW used to be, they never were going to do that, right? You're never going to bring back what ECW used to be. They tried, but it didn't last. So I'm glad that they kind of started going towards the NXT route, which is what we see today with NXT.
Mm. So you talk about there, obviously, when you also brought up there the fact that your parents allowed you to watch WWF at the time and
Mhm.
WCW. Um, so when you discover those two promotions, are you all in, for lack of a better word, and are you like, I'm gonna watch everything I can get my hands on, and my parents will let me get my hands on?
Yeah, I tried to watch everything my parents let me get my hands on. I was all in. Once I discovered wrestlers, and like one of the first matches I watched, don't remember exactly what pay-per-view, but I mean the Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin match, the screw job, like that was one of the first ones for me that kind of lured me in right there. I mean, you get two juggernauts, which they did a great job in telling you like these two are legit stars
Mm,
even if you're a kid or an adult. I felt like WWF thrived in that. So definitely got hooked instantly.
mm. So you talk about getting hooked instantly, and you also talked about how what you would consume. What kid were you? Were you a WCW kid or a WWF kid?
Oh, definitely. Once I discovered it, WWF 100%. And even to this day, WWE runs my household. That's what I watch. That's what I enjoy. But quickly, WWF was the one that it just, with the storytelling, I felt like the characters were better. I just felt like the stories they told, they had a little bit more personality. And as a kid, I mean, that's definitely what you want, right? You
Mm,
want
yeah,
people with the most personality. And they had a lot of people that, catered to the kids in the later 90s part as they started to go towards and get away a little bit from the Attitude Era. So I definitely WWF for me.
you brought up there that WWF dominates your household now. So where is your current fandom as we record this in April of 2024?
Definitely. It's so obviously today, like there's even more wrestling companies than ever. And so there's a lot of wrestling content to enjoy. You got WWE, you got TNA, you got AEW, you have New Japan. There's all kinds. I mean, and I'm not gonna say or name them all, but like if I was to put a percentage on it, because I follow all of them, because if you're going to be a wrestling personality, it's good to know at least a little bit about all of them. But at the end
Yeah,
of the day, WWE is the one for me. I follow literally every single show. I watch them all, record them all if I can't. I write about them all in WWE, all three shows. So definitely WWE runs in my household these days.
why is it that WWE still speaks to you as a fan, and maybe you haven't branched out and maybe watch? You say you follow them all, but like, why have you not made, for example, AEW or TNA your permanent wrestling destination?
Yeah, and this is kind of speaking to fans of all wrestling because obviously, we like to create wars on social media, like oh AEW, we have to be AEW or Team WWE, and it's like it doesn't have to be that way. If everybody has their own preference, and just for me personally, a lot of it's probably comfort, right? Like you watch what you're comfortable watching, and a lot of people don't want to admit that. But if you're comfortable watching WWE, and you're just uncomfortable, I guess, or scared to learn more about the other companies, then yeah, you're going to lean more WWE. So some of it's comfort. I admit that. I'm comfortable with it, but also just familiarity. Knowing that I think that goes along with it. If you grew up
Mm.
watching WWE, you know all the characters, the bloodline, family tree, and all that, Cody Rhodes. So I think that's a lot of it. And just the storytelling. I enjoy stories and I enjoy a little bit of, character development is a big thing for me, which is why NXT is actually my favorite show. I enjoy watching people develop from beginning to end on, just look how far Tiffany Stratton and people like that have elevated in a quick amount
Yeah,
of time. Solo Sokoa. Like, look how quick these people have grown, and a lot of it is character development. And I think in my personal opinion, WWE does the best in character development for their superstars. So that's a big thing for me.
you talked about there as well. You're getting out of your comfort zone and things like that. So, what do you do to make sure you're out of your comfort zone as a wrestling fan? And what would your advice be to anyone that wants to, maybe they grew up strictly a WWF kid, but wants to learn more about wrestling outside of their bubble?
Yeah, so like I'm a big also I really enjoy TNA. And the reason, and I obviously, I got to watch when like AJ Styles was in it with Samoa Joe, and when people like Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy were going
Mm,
over there. And obviously it was great then, right? But like also now it's great. And you almost have to like force yourself. Like, look, if you enjoy wrestling, then you're gonna odds are you're going to enjoy more than just WWE. There is
yeah,
something else out there that you will also enjoy. So just, clear your mindset of expectations and what you want and just literally just turn it on. You want to watch wrestling today. So turn on a TNA match, turn on a TNA show, turn on an AEW show. That pay-per-view was fire. I haven't got to watch it yet, but like from the highlights and all the
oh
stories,
yeah,
fire, like tons of great matches. Like I gotta watch them all. And like just try to clear your mind and clear all expectations, because if you go in having expectations, oh, I want this to be like the Cody Rhodes Roman storyline, or I want this to be like, Ilya Dragunov and Dijak match. Like if you go in with that mindset, it's never expectations never align with reality, no matter
yeah.
what. So just go in with the clear mind and say, I want to watch wrestling, and try to watch a different company. And I think you'll be surprised.
That's very, very cool. I'm terrible at segues. I was trying to think of a segue, but you talked about there also the fact that you are involved in the wrestling media in some aspects. So how did that come about where DC was like, I think I'm gonna give this a try?
Yeah, so like to try to summarize things, because it's a grind. Like a lot of people to this day, are still trying to get, media credentials and trying to get their feet in the door. And I get that. Like that's what we all work for. But for
Mm,
me personally, it started a long time ago. I worked at an ESPN radio station for 10 years of my life as a producer and as a co-host. And that was pretty much the beginning. And I started in 2014 doing that, and it just, it's fun. Sports radio is fun, but after a while it kind of gets a little stale. You kind of start repeating. you know it kind of becomes routine. It's like, all right, well, we got to talk NBA, we got to talk ML, like, it becomes the same thing. And
mm,
so, being a wrestling fan, I started writing about it and just trying to, create, stories that I think are in the midst of happening, or predicting the next champion or things like that. I've always enjoyed that. So that's where I started, was just writing. I started as a writer, but obviously, opportunities arose, and I got to give a shout out to bodyslam.net. I was reaching out to some people, because I ended up leaving the radio business around
yeah.
2022. So I left ESPN Radio, and I started reaching out, to different wrestling, websites, trying to see, hey, do you need any writers or hosts for post shows or anything like that? And let me know. And Body Slam, they had let me know a while back that they were planning on bringing a Monday Night Raw post show, and that they would keep me in the loop and let me know. So I shout out bodyslam.net for giving me the platform and the opportunity. They know I've been working hard towards this for a long time, and they lined me up with the greatest partner in the world in Amanda
Uh,
Savage, who I couldn't talk enough about today. So I want to give her a shout out right now. Amanda Savage, my favorite partner that I've ever worked with, in sports radio or anything. She's just a delight. So I wanted to shout out Body Slam and Amanda Savage. It's been a great opportunity, and I think we got something great.
I love your Raw review, I'm not gonna lie. So
Thank you.
you talked about the great person that is Amanda Savage there. So was Amanda the first co-host that was, I don't even know how it works. Was she pitched to work with you, or was you like, I was you friends and was you like, I'd love to work with her? How did that come about that you became the
Yeah, so like
co-host?
we followed each other before that, but like admittedly, like I knew she wrote for Wrestle Talk, but I had never really spoken to her other than like liking each other's tweets here and there, or reacting to each other's tweets. But yeah, we got paired together. Body Slam thought, I think you two would work really great together. And that's why Body Slam is where they are and why they keep growing each and every day, because they nailed it 100%. I wouldn't ask for anyone else to be my partner.
What was it about Amanda that you turned on that first episode and you were like, yeah, we've got something here? Or was there a moment where you were like, we've got
Oh,
something
there
here?
was. Oh, for sure. The first show we did together, it felt like we knew each other for a long time. She was very nervous behind the scenes. I'll go ahead and say that. I think she even says sometimes that she, and she'd admit she was nervous. The first show, she was very before we got on camera. She's like, I'm really nervous, and I was just like, look, we got this. Relax. We know our stuff. We know wrestling. We'll just go with the flow, right? And she just once she
Mm.
relaxed, I mean, once we got started, I knew I was like, all right, this is easy. Like it's like we've known each other but haven't known each other for quite some time. So just, and we have a lot in common too. We both have families, we both have kids around the same age. So a lot of similarities there. And just she's laid back, man. She's chill, easy going, and she knows her stuff. So easy to work with for sure.
You brought up Amanda's nerves there. So, as an experienced radio host and things like that, and podcaster, did you suggest anything to her to calm her nerves, or did you do anything to help her calm her nerves?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, basically just told her, I told her to take a couple deep breaths, just relax, right? You know your stuff, right? You're literally like she literally reports. Like a lot of people don't know.
Mm,
Enda is a reporter, so like she knows stuff that a lot of us normal fans don't know. So I just reminded her like, without, I don't want to cuss on here or anything, but you know your stuff, right? Like you know your stuff. You don't have to worry about, not knowing something. Like that's the number one thing when it comes to hosting a show. One is knowledge. If you know what you're talking about, that's the main thing that's going to get you through. And just, be confident in what you have to say. And she has grown so much because she'll say like, she really struggles with like having an opinion on things
mm.
because she's a writer and a reporter. So like she really doesn't do a lot of that. So I just told her just be yourself. Like we talk a lot off camera about storylines and things like that. I said just pretend it's just me and you talking about wrestling or talking about our kids or our family. And it's just relationship has just grown from there. And she's getting like if anybody's noticed the difference, when we first started the show, I led the show as the main
Mm.
voice. And we switched and now Amanda runs the show, and she's so much more comfortable now. And I think it's just taking our show to a whole new level.
You talk about the switching between leads there. How did
Mhm.
that feel as the experienced podcast guy to let her take the driver's seat, for lack of a better word?
So, and she would admit this. So it was actually my idea. I personally enjoy, and everyone has their own opinions on things, but I think the more experienced person, I think, is better utilized as the reactor.
Mm,
And that's because they're, it's almost like when you think of like color commentating and play by play, right? So like Michael Cole does the best job in play by play for wrestling, and but then you have personalities like Pat McAfee or Corey Graves add to it. And that's
mm,
what, I think you really, once you distinguish roles, I personally felt like Amanda would be better in bringing up the topic with her reporter background and her knowledge of everything and then like my radio personality adding to it, right? Adding the context. And I told her one day, I'll admit this, it was literally like an hour or something before one of our Raw post shows. I was like, I want you to lead tonight. She's like, are you sure? Like, you sure you want me to do that? I'm like, absolutely. Let's do it. And before we got on, she's like, are you sure? I'm like, I think you'll see that you'll enjoy it. And it's been great ever since. For me, I'm not a guy that has an ego or anything. I know there's a lot of people that have big egos, and that's just not who I am. I will never have an ego no matter how big I am. So for
mm.
me, when you work for a team, it's all about the team. And if I think that it's better lead for Amanda to do it, then I'm gonna do that. It's the for the better result and better product and for the better result of the team. I gotta make it happen.
That's very, very cool. You talked about the bit of advice you gave there for podcasting and things like that. But what are, DC, some of your top three pieces of advice for starting a podcast for people that maybe want to?
Yeah, so number one is I don't know if you're just talking about wrestling podcasts or a podcast in general, but
If they
whatever
can
you're
apply to either, that would be cool.
yeah, so like if you even if you're just starting, okay, let's just say any podcast. Number one, definitely find your audience. Know your audience. Who do you want to reach? Who do you want to share your podcast? Who do you want to get to listen to it? So number one is audience. Find your audience.
Mm,
Number two is find a difference. Like there's obviously a lot of podcasts out there, right? So you want to find a topic and I guess a show where it's different from others. Be different because if you just do the same thing as everyone else, then it's going to be hard to stand out, right? If we just all
mm,
have like if we just all just have a raw post show and they're all the same thing, then it's going to be hard to distinguish any difference whatsoever. So like, definitely number two is definitely, find a difference. And number three, just be comfortable. Once you find those two things, it makes it easy to, and just relax because it's your show, right? And so you talk about what you want to talk about. And if you talk, the odds are whatever you talk about, there's going to be someone that also enjoys what you talk about. So as long as you do those three things, I think you are in line for success. And obviously share it. Don't be afraid to share your content, whether it's good or bad. Share it and always just work to get better. So, but the main three things is know your audience, be different, try to find a way to stand out. And number three, just be confident.
mm. So you talked about the don't be afraid to share your content, even if it's bad. What were some of the early mistakes you made as a podcaster? And then what are some mistakes you see young podcasters, that's hard to say, making now?
Yeah, so like a lot of it is don't get caught. So like everyone has like their I forget what they're called, but like when you try to fill time and you try to find a word to transition into a different conversation, like a lot of people say buts or and or or things like that. Those are I forget what the term is called. We learned it in radio, but it's been like 11 years. I
I
forget
know
what it,
what you mean because
but yeah,
mine
those
is that's very cool, my friend. I find
yeah,
I say that a lot to
everyone has that and it's okay. It's okay to but try to get away from those because those are very noticeable first of all from
mm,
like experienced people, but just try, just try to keep the conversation going no matter which direction it goes and just try to get away from the ands, the buts and the ums
mm. What
because I
is
did that a lot. I did that a lot in my early days, and I go back and listen to some of my stuff, and I'm like, this is horrible. Like I say like three times. It was bad. So that would be my number one advice for early podcasters.
you talked about? We obviously talked there about your advice for podcasters. You are work with two of the greats in wrestling podcasts, whether it be Cassidy Haynes or
Yes.
Mr. SP3. So, have you learned anything from them since you've been podcasting with BodySlam.net?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what they've done in our early times is they definitely want us to, to promote the slam chats a lot more. They definitely have taught us, to promote that because that's how we get paid, right? The
Hmm.
slam chats are how we get paid as creators, and they definitely have harped on me a little bit about that because it's easy to get away from that stuff when you're doing a review show. You want to talk a lot about what happened on the show, right? So you kind of get away from, oh yeah, we want to get paid for this, right?
Yeah.
And slam chats they definitely push that a lot. But yeah, they've taught us a lot of just about a lot of it's just like I said, just being comfortable and relaxing and just letting the content speak for itself. And a lot of it is too the audience drives our review shows. Like we have a lot of loyal listeners that tune in each and every week to us and look forward to us hosting the show. And they help drive it too. So it's all about the listeners and they've taught us that. So definitely shout out Body Slam is one, at least in my tenure and working in podcasting and sports, one of my favorite places I've ever worked.
That's so cool. So you talked about it there being one of your favorite places to work and things like that. Did you have we talked about the moment that you knew you and Amanda would be good, but did you have a moment where you were like, yeah, this is where I belong within wrestling media is Body Slam?
So the moment I knew I was belonged in wrestling media happened actually before I worked with Body Slam. So I actually happened so this happened writing for Fansided. So that's
Mm,
when I started writing for Daily DDT on Fansided. I did an article. I think it was like next top NXT call ups or something like that. And this is a couple years ago. And Carmelo Hayes retweeted my article and literally DM'd me on Twitter after following me and told me that, you should get a show. And when you do get a show, I'd like to come on. So like when wrestlers are like literally messaging you and saying that, you know, I think you're doing a great job, enjoy your content, that means a lot, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
it's just that's when I knew I fit in. Like people like Carmelo Hayes, Wes Lee. Like I took my family for vacation in Florida. This is another reason. I took my family vacation to Florida last year, and I went to an NXT show, my first one, NXT house show, because I don't live there, so I don't get to watch NXT. Wes Lee comes up to me after his match and knows exactly who I am from Twitter. She comes up to me right after the match, shakes my hand, takes pictures with my son, and is like, keep doing what you're doing. Things like that. Those are moments where you belong in wrestling media. Like, so though I would credit those two moments for sure.
You talked about the moments you knew you belonged in wrestling media there. We all suffer from a little bit of burnout and imposter syndrome at times. So,
Mhm.
what do you do when you feel yourself starting to suffer with either one of those?
Yeah, so like the best thing to do when you feel a little burnt out is just to step away for a moment. That's the best thing to do. Try to enjoy something else, some other content. Admittedly, I don't get burnt out a lot, to be honest with you though. I love WWE and what they're doing right now. I guess for me, the only time I get necessarily burnt out is just, having a family. I have three kids. I also work two jobs. So like if I'm burnt out, it's mainly from the other things. It's not really
Yeah,
from
yeah.
wrestling. So a lot of wrestling for me is escape from the other things. But there's some times where I admit where the Monday show comes, the Monday Night Raw show is coming, and I'm like, all right. So Raw's 3 hours. I know I got to be up until at least midnight, doing the show. But like I said, a lot of it's just stepping away for a moment, taking a break, relaxing, taking a couple deep breaths, taking a couple minutes, and just think for a moment. Like, all right, I realize I'm burnt out. You realize it. That's the number one step. But just take a deep breath. You still got to get through it. You still got to do it, and just make sure. And once you take that deep breath and relax, you're fine. That's all it takes.
Hmm. What about imposter syndrome? Do you suffer from that at all?
Not at all. I've seen so there a lot of that is like I said earlier, like with me, I'm not a guy, I've done a lot of stuff in my career and I've done a lot of exciting things, but like it's either in you to be arrogant or not. And
Hmm.
like there are a lot of people admittedly in any business in any journalism industry, there are unfortunately people that make you feel like you don't belong, and they will always be there. But at the end of the day, like you work just like them. Like at the end of the day, we're all wrestling journalists, we're all media credentials, so you're no different than I am, whether you've been doing it longer or not. We're still here doing the same thing. So I know I've seen all kind of posts about people feeling the imposter syndrome. Don't let anyone feel
I
like
suffer from it a lot. I'm not gonna lie.
never feel like you are less than anyone else. You are the exact same. At the end of the day, we are all wrestling fans. We are all the same. Don't let anyone make you feel like you are any less than them ever, ever. I don't care how, I don't care who they are, what they've done. At the end of the day, we're all just wrestling fans. We're writing like let's be real here. Like wrestling is a scripted sports entertainment business. So
Hmm.
we're all just fans of it. We are no different than each other. I don't care what anyone says. So try to try to go into it and just think we're all the same. And whether if people don't want to acknowledge you and your work, then that's their problem. And eventually, and those are the miserable people. Like they're not going to have any friends. They're going to be all alone during these media scrums. Nobody's going to talk to them, and they're going to feel lonely. And I feel bad for those people that are like that. I really do.
Hmm. I understand what you're saying there, and something I will try and take on board. I'm not gonna lie. But as we look at wrapping this up pretty soon, DC, because I do want to be respectful of your time, I have a bit of a self-indulgent question before we do
Okay.
my wrap-up questions. Where can I improve as a podcaster? What did you enjoy? And things like that.
Um, where could you improve as a podcaster? I think, a lot of it I would just say like your background would be one.
Mm.
Try to like get some crazy either because I just got mine blurred, but like a lot of people have like a creative background, like some wrestling stuff, some memorabilia. If you don't have that, just like you can download pictures and like create fake backgrounds and make virtual backgrounds, just something to make pop up the videos and make them just a little bit more exciting. But as a personality, like you nailed it, man. You kept the conversation going. You digged into my story. You did a great job. So I guess my only thing would just to be, if you're, pop up the video a little bit more. Other than that, I think you did a great job.
I really appreciate that. So, as we look at wrapping this up, I have two questions for you.
Let's
Actually,
do
we're
it.
going to go into something else before because I completely forgot.
Let's
How
do
does
it.
WrestleHolics come about, and how do you start that? And how do you make your chemistry different with your co-host there than
Mhm.
you do with Amanda?
Yeah, so WrestleHolics podcast is actually started by a buddy of mine named Andrew Fuller. He is a big podcaster as well. He has a lot of podcasts. So we all live in the same city in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Mm,
And Andrew had this idea long before we started it finally. Andrew talked about having his own wrestling podcast. So he's the founder of the podcast. And he's a buddy of mine. We went to high school together. And he needed co-hosts for it. And I'm a buddy of his. So I write about wrestling. I talk about it. So he's like, all right, I want you to be on this
yeah,
podcast. You got experience. And so we started it with another buddy of ours that we also went to high school with, but it didn't work out. He didn't stay on the podcast. So now today it's my buddy Andrew, who I went to high school with. It's me and a buddy of his that I met through him named Manny T.
mm,
And so we all live in the same city in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we basically come together and it's easy. I mean, we're three friends talking about the wrestling company that we love. I try to get them. I try to get them to talk about things other than WWE, but it's hard. They're it's a lot like what I said earlier with comfort and stepping out of the comfort zone. They're not big fans of AEW, so we don't really get into that a whole lot. But it's easy. I mean, we're all at the end of the day talking about professional wrestling, whether it's with Amanda or WrestleHolics. But I think it's pretty similar. We just it's a lot more parental advisories on that podcast, I will admit.
okay.
Definitely got to make sure if you don't listen to it around kids, probably I wouldn't advise that. But we have it's a lot of laid back and chill conversations, but we have a lot of fun on there.
That's very, very cool, DC. So,
Thank you.
as we wrap this up, my friend, I just realized I used my terrible segue. I do apologize.
No, you're fine.
So, as we wrap this up, I have two questions for you.
Okay.
Do you view your career in wrestling media as a success so far? And if you wrapped it up tomorrow and said, I'm just going to do my shoot job, I'm going to be a dad, and things like that, what would you want your legacy as a creator to be?
Oh, if I was in tomorrow, I would not be satisfied with my wrestling career at all. So I have a long way to go. To me, I'm just getting started in my wrestling career. I have still yet to actually interview any wrestler. I haven't interviewed a wrestler yet. So that's definitely something, I just literally like a week or so ago, got access with WWE for media and things like that. So I'm just getting my foot in the door in that category. So definitely still a long way to go. I got a lot of people that want to come on my shows and want to chat, and I got a lot of people I want to chat with. So no, 100% not satisfied at all. I would be very disappointed. Got a long way to go.
What would you want your legacy to be?
I just want to be, I want my legacy to just be, hey man, this guy DC is cool, he's chill, he's a good guy, and I don't want, I want to spread positive energy in a company, or not in a company, but in a business and industry that harps on negativity. Like the
Mm.
internet can be very, very cruel, and people can be very cruel on social media, and they probably wouldn't be that way in real life. But unfortunately, the Internet Wrestling Club, there can be a lot of negativity. So I want to be one of the positive forces that brings the positivity to an industry that needs it the most. So that's who I want to be, the chill, positive guy that, brings a lot of positive vibes to the industry.
So cool. So as we wrap this up, DC, obviously we are going to do a segment that I call that is a staple on this channel that I call generic questions. Those of
Let's
you
do
that have seen my interviews before will know this where I'll ask DC his favorite overall match. Favorite overall pay-per-view card, such as Double or Nothing 2019. Favorite wrestlers entrance team, favorite tag team, and favorite wrestler. Basically, the questions I assume DC might be asked on social media. So now he'll have a place to be like, guys, I have answered this. Please go watch this. So, what's your favorite match of all time?
Favorite match of all time. This is something, if you ask me this tomorrow, it'd probably change. But as of today, I will say WrestleMania 21, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar.
Why does that one speak to you as a fan?
Just that was when I became a fan of Brock Lesnar. Realized this dude is not just a big monster, like dude can do moonsaults, just a great technical match. Two, juggernauts, two wrestling juggernauts, right? That did a great job in college and Olympics, like just a great wrestling match. I loved it. Had me on my toes the whole time. As of today, definitely got to go down as my favorite match.
What about your favorite overall pay-per-view card?
This is also something that would probably change tomorrow. I'm going to give a little recency bias here, but I personally believe WrestleMania 40.
Mm.
It's going to be so hard to top that card. I mean, you think of Rhea Becky, Bailey Io, you got obviously The Rock returning and teaming up with his cousin in Roman. You got Cody Rhodes finishing the story, Gunter's reign ending with Sami Zayn, tag team title match splitting. Like, it's going to be really hard to top WrestleMania 40's match card.
Mm. What about your favorite wrestler's entrance theme?
Entrance theme,
Yeah.
entrance theme. So that's easy because actually this is also going to be biased, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to be biased on this one. So friends of mine that actually did the theme music for Cody Rhodes, I went to high school with, just had them on my WrestleHolics podcast for WrestleMania week. My buddies Downstait.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, they did Kingdom. So I'm going to be biased here and take my friends Downstate.
That's very, very cool. And that is so cool that you went to high school with them. I'm not gonna lie. I just
Yeah.
marked out
The
a little
lead
bit.
singer was my team captain on my baseball team in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, dude, before we continue with generic questions, you just opened up a whole can of worms. I'm not gonna lie. So,
Mhm.
when you see them performing and doing Cody's thing, was this something you always knew that the captain of your baseball team was gonna do, or was this something that you were like, wait, I went to high school with him. That's very cool.
I'm gonna have to send you the link to our interview after this because yeah, we literally just had them on and I asked them that. Like, yeah, Zach called the lead singer at Downstate. I always knew he was gonna be a star. Now I
Mm.
didn't know it was gonna be in music because he was a very great baseball player as well. But he would sing in the hallways, leaving choir class. We could hear him from all the way down the hall, just him singing, being goofy, but like he always had a good voice. But we did not know. I'd be lying to you if I told you that I thought he would be leading one of the most popular rock bands and most known entrance music theme. Like, I'd
Yeah.
be lying to you if I told you that I knew that they would be that. So it's just a testament to him and the rest of the band. So no, I didn't know from day one. No.
That's so cool though. What about as we continue with generic questions? What about your favorite tag team?
Favorite tag team of all time. So this is hard to choose, but I'm gonna have to go with the Usos. There's been a lot of great tag teams. For a long time, I really enjoyed the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian. Those guys, the Brothers of Destruction, APA. But the Usos' dominance during their run, it's hard to top that. And their title reign, obviously, longest reign in tag team history. I got to go with the Usos. Got to give some love to the Usos.
And then finally, the biggest generic question, in my opinion, DC. Who is your favorite overall wrestler?
Favorite overall wrestler of all time, or
Of all time, yeah.
whew, all time, is Shawn Michaels.
Why does he speak to you as a
There's
fan?
not one match from Shawn Michaels that was bad to me. Beginning to end, I can't give you one match of Shawn Michaels that was bad. I was always intrigued in his matches, no matter who he was facing to this day. And then like even what he's done after too. Like it's just a testament to him and his love for wrestling. Like what he's doing now, in addition to what he was as a wrestler, Shawn Michaels is the GOAT. I don't care. I would argue that with anyone. He is the greatest of all time. He's literally bringing us the future of wrestling and just continuing in a great way, training these wrestlers. And while he was a wrestler, one of the greatest, Shawn Michaels, the GOAT.
That's very, very cool, DC. So as we wrap this up, obviously I want to say thank you for a great conversation. But the question I end this show on is I believe as people with social media, podcasters and YouTubers, we're sort of gonna live forever in some sort of very, very weird way if you think about the word. So what is one piece of content you're like, I'd like to be remembered for that? And then what is one that you're like, yuck, please forget about that?
So for me, for my career,
Yes.
um, so my worst is not even wrestling. I really don't have anything bad from wrestling, but I used to have I interviewed Gene Simmons from Kiss once.
Ooh.
And it sounds good, but it was one of the worst interviews I've ever done. It was horrible, horrible. I wish I could delete it, but I can't because it's Gene Simmons. So like I gotta leave it up,
Why
right?
is it was it so bad though?
He was not I mean, I don't want to say not interested in the interview, but I
I know
asked
what
him
you
a
mean.
question. I asked him a question about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he was not happy at all
Mm.
about it. He hates the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it just went left. Like he literally ended the interview himself, and he was my guest. So that tells you everything you need to know. I think my best work is definitely wrestling related. I did an article a couple weeks ago on the most underrated female wrestlers in WWE
I
right
saw
now,
this.
and Mia Yim, Mi Chin retweeted it, and that is exactly what I aimed for with that article. She read it clearly and shared it and said, thank you for this, and actually shared my article. And that's exactly when you get those moments when you write about these wrestlers and you touch them in that way, that is exactly why we do this. And I will say that was my best work. That article, if anyone wants to check it out, you can check my social media page, go to dailyddt.com. But yeah, underrated female wrestlers in WWE is my strongest work I've done, definitely in wrestling media.
You talked about there your social media page. So as we wrap this up, DC, obviously I want to say thank you for a great conversation. But please
Thank you.
promote yourself. Where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
So I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I'm at DC Hendricks. I'm on Instagram at official DC Hendricks. And you can find me on Facebook at DC Hendricks as well. So not too difficult. Instagram is the only one that wants to be difficult because someone else has DC Hendricks and doesn't want to give it up. So official DC Hendricks on Instagram and DC Hendricks everywhere else.
It's well worth following him, guys. Not only one of the hardest working people in this space, but one of the nicest as well. So if you
Thank you.
guys like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talks Trash on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter or X at Tom Talks Trash. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.